Welcome everybody. I'm here with Annie Brandt. You are the founder of Best Answer for Cancer. It's an organization, but you actually, there is a reason why you started that organization, and why was that? I mean, what was the reason?
So in 2001, I found a little swollen lymph node under my left arm. It wasn't there the day before. It was the strangest thing. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, let's send you to the OB-GYN. And I went to the OB-GYN and, well, let's get a mammogram. We got a mammogram. It didn't show anything, but she thought it was still interesting. It was the word she used. So then the next thing was a ultrasound. We got the ultrasound, and then, well, we still don't understand it. There's nothing showing in the breast, but let's do a biopsy. And at the time, I didn't know any better. So I said, okay. And so we did the biopsy, and the surgeon came in. I wasn't even out of anesthesia yet. So I was in the recovery room. And she came in, she said, I'm sorry, it's cancer. And we only know that you have it. We don't know which breast it's in because the mammogram didn't show anything. The ultrasound didn't show anything. So we've got you booked for a double mastectomy next Tuesday. This is a Friday. And Monday's your pre-op, and have a nice weekend. And she left. And I was like, just sitting there like, so naturally I was a little upset, and I went home and I was crying, and I heard a voice, and I thought someone had broken in the house. It was that real voice.
Yeah.
And it said, I love you, and I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you. And I knew it was God. And at that point, what I got was, oh yeah, I get it, because if I die, I'm going to you, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if I live, I've got things to help others, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm getting chills when you're saying that.
I still get chills.
Yeah.
And it's been 19 years. So that's when I knew that if I survived, actually, I believed either way I was going to survive, because I was going to live forever if I went to God. So if I survived, I was going to do something to help others. So long story short, I survived, and that's why I started the nonprofit, Best Answer for Cancer. It was really just to educate and help people through this process.
Yeah, and now it trains physicians all over the world and the different therapies that are available.
Yes, we're all about education. So not just the physicians, but the public, especially the public, because you just don't know. You only know what you hear, what you read on the internet, what your oncologist says. And so it's really important to get the best information you can. Same is true for the alternative doctors, because we want to make sure that they have the best therapies available, not necessarily the latest and greatest. Something that has a lot of experience behind it, or science behind it, or even anecdotal. I mean, there's nothing wrong with anecdotal.
No, if it works, it works.
And if there's a lot of evidence of that, why would you? Yeah. So I don't get that one.
So I'm curious. So, I mean, obviously back in 2001, we didn't have what we have available now. So no. And you were diagnosed with breast cancer. They wanted to do double mastectomy. And was it just in the breast, or had it gone elsewhere as well?
Yeah, good question. So further scans. So I did my research on that whole weekend. I did my research, and I went in Monday for my pre-op, and I said to the oncologist, so I learned over the weekend that surgery stimulates cancer and weakens the immune system and causes cancer to spread. Is that true? Yes. Okay, I also learned that chemo and radiation both kill the p53 tumor suppressor gene, the very gene you need. I learned that they suppress the immune system, damage all the vital body organs, and cause cancer to build immunities to them, as well as causing cancer to spread. Is that correct? Yes. And I don't think I said this, but I said I also learned that they distorted the DNA of your healthy cells, which actually made the healthy cells precancerous. And so if you get a recurrence, there's nothing left to fight it. Is that correct? And she said, yes. I said, why would I want to do that? And she says, that's all we have. And I said, well, I don't think that's all there is. And she actually told me I was going to die. And I said, you know what? God is the only one who knows when I'm going to die. Everyone else just has an opinion, including me. So what our our next steps if we are to take any? And she said, well, our next steps will be to find out where else it is. I said, okay. So they did some more scans and they found out it was indeed in my brain and my lungs. So now I've gone way down from my life expectancy to about 3 months. And if I did the surgery, chemo, and radiation, 5 months. And I think she thought that would convince me, but I said, well, I don't want to live that way and I don't want to die that way. So see ya. And I left. And so there wasn't anything. I mean, I started looking around and I heard a lot about diet. So I did a raw, organic, vegan diet and as a huge cleanse. And that was accompanied with daily enemas and colonics. But the raw, organic, vegan, a lot of people don't know this. It digests at the cellular level. And so it pushes toxins out. So the place I went, I stayed 7 weeks and there was a lady, an artist, who walked by me smelling a turpentine, and all her materials were coming out of her skin. After about 3 weeks, I started smelling cigarette smoke, and I'm a rabid anti-smoker, so I was going to get whoever was smoking in there. I was on a mission, and I turned a corner. I turned a corner one day, and I smelled nicotine, and I looked down at my arm, and nicotine was coming out of my skin after 16 years.
Are you serious?
16 years.
Yeah.
People don't realize how hard the cells hold on to things.
Yeah.
So detox is very important. So I did that, and I did a lot of detox of the mind and the spirit. A lot of brought God in, but a lot of mind-body stuff.
And I hear that frequently, how important that component is. That you really, if you don't address the emotional factor of the cancer, you really haven't gotten. I mean, it's kind of like working on the surface, trying to clear out the physical components of it, but the emotional and mental is what's holding it in there. So you need to address that as well, so you can remove the toxins that are causing the cancer.
In my opinion, the biggest missing link is mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
I think people don't pay enough attention to the stinking thinking. You know, it's one of my favorite phrases, the stinking thinking. You know, cancer loves the stinking thinking. It loves the negatives. It loves the trauma, drama, you know, anger, bitterness, resentment, loves all that stuff. So I think that's actually the biggest missing link. And doctors are not trained to look there. So it's the unusual doctor who examines that connection.
So you did on the vegan diet, and you were on this cleanse for like 7 weeks. You had nicotine coming out of your pores, and working on your mind body connection. Yeah, healing your emotions. So what was after that? Did you go back and check to see where you're at, or what happened?
Yeah. So I did everything I could think of and everything I could find, you know, exercise, meditation. But I stayed at that location for 7 weeks doing the cleanse. And then I did the raw organic vegan diet for 7 months. Mm-hmm. And this is what I tell patients is don't stick with any one thing, because I was reading that cancer builds immunities. And so I started not responding to the raw organic vegan diet. I didn't feel well. And I added back in a little meat and started feeling better. So that was another discovery that people are just discovering now, is that you don't keep patterns. You don't stay doing the same thing all the time, because cancer is smart. The only stupid thing it does is kill us. So it builds immunities. So for 7 months, I did that particular diet and that plan. And then it was, so 7 months, it was probably February of the following year. I went back in for an appointment with the oncologist, and we did tests. Now, this is another thing. All my blood tests are completely normal. My tumor markers show nothing. So I look like the healthiest person on paper. And, but they did another scan, and were surprised that a lot of the tumors were gone. I still had a lot. Yes, I still had a lot. I still had lung. I still had brain. They never did find the breast cancer until this next therapy that I found. So about 2003, they finally found the tumor. But so I had evidence that what I did was working, which was
Yeah.
good, but
Hmm.
it was still there. So I started looking around again, and I found a story about a woman with stage 4 breast cancer who did a therapy called insulin potentiation therapy and completely cured the breast cancer. Well, and no surgery. So here's a woman that did what I did, and she found this tool. So I started looking at this tool, nicknamed IPT, and what it does is it's actually a Trojan horse delivery method. So it fools the cancer, just the cancer, into accepting the chemo and anti-cancer drugs.
So
And
how
you're
so how
healthy.
does it do that? I mean, how you?
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
So um, you come in fasting. So the cancer's already hungry. Cancer eats what you eat. So when you come in the clinic fasting, it's hungry. So are your healthy cells. But when your healthy cells don't have enough fuel, they start getting somnolent to conserve energy for the heart, the brain, the lungs. So they're already kind of sleepy. Your cancer cells, on the other hand, are wound up. They're ready to eat. And at that point, the doctor weighs you, and based on your body weight, gives you a small dose of insulin in an IV. The insulin, cancer and disease cells have at least 6 times more insulin receptors on their surface than healthy cells. And so the insulin further stimulates the cancer cells. Now, when your blood sugar is dropping, what that does, if you don't have any fuel to absorb the insulin, and again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm probably not, probably doctors would laugh at the way I'm describing this, but it works for us lay people. So when they give you the insulin and you don't have fuel for that insulin to work off, the healthy cells, the blood sugar starts dropping. The healthy cells get even more sleepy to conserve energy for the heart, the brain, the lungs. The cancer cells, on the other hand, are further stimulated. So it takes about, based on the formula, the traditional formula for IPT, it takes about 25 to 30 minutes for the patient to get into what they call the therapeutic moment. And the therapeutic moment is when your blood sugar is at a certain depth, a certain low, and that's when they believe that the cancer cells are the most stimulated and the healthy cells are asleep. So the picture is that you are now isolating just the cancer cells, and your healthy cells are not involved. And that's about 25 to 30 minutes. At that point, they deliver just 1/10 of the dose of whatever medication it is. So if it's not cancer and they're treating like pneumonia, they would deliver the dose for pneumonia. If it's cancer, they're going to deliver chemo or another anti-cancer substance. And then cancer loves virus, bacteria, inflammation, and I forgot. I always forget the fourth one. Sugar. No. Yeah, it loves sugar. But anyway, it loves 4 things. And so they deliver an antiviral, antifungal, that's what it is, fungus, antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory, and then the chemo. And so you've literally cancer sitting there with its mouth open and just taking this stuff in. Now, I told you it's smart. So about the time you're finished, the doctor's finished delivering that stuff, it figures out maybe this wasn't a good idea. So to further fool it and get it to accept those things, that's when they deliver a dose, either deliver a dose of sugar, or they let you start eating regular food, which creates the sugar, and that sugar seals everything into the cancer cell. And that's the end of the therapy. It's like once you get hooked up to your IV, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. It's so easy. You're sitting there alert, social, chatting. It's the easiest cancer treatment I could imagine.
And you get to keep your hair.
Yeah, well, most people, almost all people, don't lose their hair. I think a lot of that is in the mind too. You expect to look like that cancer patient, but I've seen very few people over the last 19 years lose their hair. So you don't get sick, you don't lose your hair, because again, your healthy cells are not involved if you get the blood sugar to the proper level. So to make sure those healthy cells are sleeping.
And so you did, and how many treatments of this did you do, and how often were they?
So it's the traditional, the protocol we teach is you start out with one treatment twice a week for 1 month. So that's 8.
Okay.
Then you do one treatment once a week for 6 weeks. So that's a total of 14.
Mm-hmm.
That's minimal. So that's like what I call the loading dose. And then they, you try and have a way to look at the cancer. So in my case, we looked at the breast tumors with ultrasound, very non-invasive, very inexpensive. And so for the first month, every week we did an ultrasound, and we actually could see if the chemo was working on the cancer. So the tumors would get smaller. If they got larger, we switched to chemos.
Yeah.
Nowadays they have something called the Greek test, nicknamed the Greek test. It's the RGCC test, and it's a blood test they can send to Greece, and they spin out the cancer cells and test them against all these substances, and they give you a roadmap of everything that does work against the cancer. But back then we just had the cancer chemotherapy book. So we just went down the list. And if the ultrasound showed an increase in tumors, then we switched chemos. And it was so easy.
Yeah.
And now the one time that it did show an increase and we didn't switch chemos was at the very end, and the tumors had been shrinking until they were almost gone. And all of a sudden they went up.
Okay.
And I said to the doctor, now, should we switch chemos? He said, no. He said, I think that was its last hurrah. And it was just throwing everything at it. And so sure enough, we did. He said, let's do one more time. We did one more time, and all the tumors were gone. So that was 8.5 months after I started IPT.
And often you see a little bit of a swelling, as you're doing treatment. You see a little bit of a swelling of the tumor. It becomes less dense and swell up a little bit as you're killing it off.
That I don't, again, I'm not a doctor, so I only know what I saw with mine.
No.
And
no.
the only time I saw that was at the very end, but that makes sense.
Yeah. So after doing that, breast tumor was gone. How about the other ones, like in the brain? And I mean, what happened to them?
So I still have scars. Excuse me. I have scar tissue in the brain. There's nothing alive up there, but I have the scars from the tumors. I have scar tissue in the lungs. Nothing alive, but I have it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of evidence that it was there. Sometimes the scars don't always, the tumors just turn into shells. They don't always go away.
No.
But that's what's good about a PET scan, is you can see if there's blood flow to it. Same with the ultrasound. The ultrasound I did was called a Doppler ultrasound. Mm-hmm. So it actually showed blood flow. It's not, totally non-invasive. It was a wonderful little tool. But like the PET scan, it shows if the tumor's eating. And so, we just waited till nobody's eating. There's no food going in and out. Okay, we're done. And it was just, I can't tell you how easy it was and how amazed I was that I had my quality of life. And, I'd go into the grocery store and like the checker would look at me like, you're still alive, and I mean, seriously, that expression, because that's not what happens normally, right?
No. And
so, all my friends and everybody who knew me kept waiting for me to die. I was like, I'm not going, not yet. So.
And that's a beautiful thing, is that you have these traditional therapies, and all they could offer was a 2-month extension. And they think they are giving you, doing you such a favor to give you those 2 months. And then also with that, all the pain and suffering. I mean, how you're feeling as you're doing that, those
quality of life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You're so right. And I love what you're doing here, because you're doing what we do. You're helping to educate so that people know there are all these options. They've got to know. And, conventional they're not wicked. They're really only doing what they know, and their sources of information are different than ours. You all go through the same schooling, but you keep going, and you're constantly looking at these different therapies that come out that sound interesting and might help, So that's why I tell people is we're not against conventional, they're part of the picture, for goodness sakes. I mean, we just think there's a big picture.
Yeah.
So
it plays a role, and you have to recognize when it's the appropriate time to use it. And so it's having that wisdom, but also then recognize, like you're saying, your doctor said that this is all we got. So you have to recognize that this is all they can offer because that is all they got.
Right. And I really think that's such an important key to this whole thing is just don't put, no one cares about your life more than you do. And so why are you putting all your faith in one person? I think we have a team, and I think we pick the people to be on our team. And you might, like, for instance, my current alternative doctor, he's the head of my team. But that doesn't mean I take everything he says verbatim. It doesn't mean I stop doing research. Doesn't mean I just do whatever he wants me to, because nobody cares as much about my life as I do. And so I want to see, he may not know that I have this allergy or that allergy, and so I can't just do what he tells me to do because he may not know the ramifications to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I tell that to my patients. There's no better doctor than your own body, and I'm here to support and educate. But at the end of the day, the one that is healing is yourself. I mean, the healing tools exist within you.
Right. There's so many tools out there too, Dr. Karlfeldt. That's what I was saying earlier. I need to do an update to my book because when I wrote it in 2016, I have a chapter of alternative therapies that's bigger than any other chapter in the book. There's so many out there. Well, that was 2016. There's so many more. And yet, people say to me, well, I found this new therapy. Is it good? That's the biggest question is like, I always ask, how long has the therapy been out there? Does it have anecdotal history? Does it have scientific basis? These are questions you have to ask. You don't just jump on the bandwagon and do something because it's new. And, someone said it's great, I mean, you're a guinea pig. You're the little rabbits in the cage that they come in, I don't want to be a guinea pig. I want to try something that other people in my shoes have had success with. And, saying that, we are all individuals. I call us snowflakes.
Yeah.
So no one's the same. So why would you just believe Mary because she did it and it worked for her? It may not work for you.
Yeah, and also with the more of the holistic or integrative alternative, whichever name that you use. I mean, by this time, we've had millions of people use these kind of therapies. Millions upon millions, and we've had there's really good track record with that.
Right.
So it's not like it's this little French thing. It's something that so many people have used with great benefits.
It's really important to look at like how long it's been around. So like IPT, the story behind that, I don't know if you know this, but the inventor was a surgeon in the Mexican army and he had trouble digesting his food. And my understanding of the story is that he heard about the insulin, the hormone insulin, and he thought, maybe I'll try and inject that before I eat. Well, so he injected insulin, I think, in his stomach, and then he would eat, and lo and behold, he started absorbing food and gaining weight. So his next thought process was, well, now what can I use it on? I think he used it on syphilis next in the Mexican army, which I guess was pretty prevalent. And then 1946, though, was the first time it was used on cancer. 1946. And amazing. So when you think about that history, and there was a doctor in Canada, Jean-Claude Paquette, and he's now deceased, but he used it on everything but cancer. So he used it on pneumonia, slipped discs, weird stuff. Yeah. And was very successful with it. So I love that therapy just because it's like, it's not just about cancer.
No.
Yeah. And so when you look at things like, I think mistletoe is another one. It's useful for many things. It's not just cancer. So, we need to look around more. We need to do our research, open our eyes, build a toolbox.
Yeah. And not be so limited by what's called standard of care, but to be open to see what other people have done that's working.
And that's cool that you said standard of care, because standard of care is assigned to conventional medicine, but there's a standard of care for herbal medicine. There's a standard of care for homeopathics. There's lots of standards of care. And I just think we need to somehow open the eyes of the world, and especially conventional medicine, that there are options out there and they're not harmful to conventional medicine. There's no harm intended.
And what I'm curious, I mean, because you start back in '01, I mean, with what was available at that time, you had tremendous benefits. I mean, incredible benefit. But then with your organization, you've gotten to see how alternative therapies or integrative therapies, how they evolved. And I'm curious, do you mind just kind of sharing what you've seen and how it's moved forward and kind of where we're at right now?
It's been, thank you. That's a great question. It's been revolutionary. So we started out when I farmed it in 2006, it was just IBT. There really wasn't much out there. And I think even that next year was when we first found out about the benefit of certain nutraceuticals. And then high dose vitamin C, I think was more 2008. But then all of a sudden it just mushroomed. We had ozone come in. Ozone came in '09 and it just, blew the doors off for a lot of people. So all of a sudden I had invited one vendor to the 2007 conference. I don't think I had any in 2006. Our first conference was 2006. And 2007 conference, I invited one vendor, and 2008, we had a room full. And 2009, it was, we actually started bringing in the public. So it just mushroomed. And now when I look around at all the options, it's kind of scary because there's so many. Mm-hmm. And there's, I have to say, there's a lot that are questionable. Mm-hmm. Now, does that say, what that says to me is just do your research. Just don't buy in because it sounds great. I think everybody's got great ideas. I think a lot of these products are great ideas. Are they great products? They can be for some, not for others. Remember, we're all snowflakes. So that's just the best advice I can give. Do your research. Make sure that this is good for you. Not just
so what would you say with everything that's out there? And like you said, everyone is a snowflake, so it's not going to be the same therapy for everybody. But what are some of the things that you feel are the strongest therapies available that seem to create consistent results?
Okay, the basics. So definitely ozone. Definitely high dose vitamin C. I mean, high dose vitamin C has been proven in studies to kill cancer. Ozone kills mold, mildew, bacteria, virus, many of the things that cancer loves. So it's great. There's a product called poly-MBA, multivitamin aminos, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier, which is very unusual. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and renourishes the body at the cellular level. It's great for cancer and chronic disease. Curcumin, another really great one. Artesunate, you and I talked about this earlier. It's a Chinese herb that works like chemo, but no side effects. Gosh, there's so many. I'm going to get shot because I'm forgetting some people, but nanosilver, Argentin 23 is really powerful. In fact, one of our doctors who had COVID, he said the thing that worked the best for him was an IV of Argentin 23, nanosilver. Gosh, you're really putting me on the spot here, and my brain is not cooperating. But what I can say is, my book is a good reference. It's on Amazon. All proceeds go to the cancer fund, the patients. Mm-hmm. So I don't make anything on it, but it's called The Healing Platform, and it's got a whole chapter of integrative therapies. That was 2016. Mm-hmm. So it's increased since then, but those were the basics in there, and that I would still recommend over most anything else. And
what are some things that you have that kind of exciting, that's new, that we are still, it doesn't have a lot of track record, but it has a lot of promise that you're seeing?
So gosh, I've got like 10. Say what? No. Sorry, one of my friends is here. She's another patient. I love patients. They're, the growth process, this journey is so fascinating to me, and it's encouraging to me. But anyway, so sorry everybody. But so new therapies. Give me an idea what you're thinking about, and I'll tell you what I know about it.
Well, so you have things like the photodynamic therapy.
Sonophotodynamic, yeah. Tell
With,
them about that real quick.
so
No, you
yes,
go.
well, yeah. So what we do in the clinic, I mean and this is something that is evolving really quickly, is that we do a combination then with stem cells, and then also use a photosensitizer, and you introduce that intravenously, and the photosensitizer then accumulates in the tumor cells, and the stem cell, which is it moves towards wherever you have inflammation, and obviously cancer is a very kind of inflammatory condition. So the stem cell becomes like a shuttle to drive that photosensitizer even more into the tumor, and then you use intravenous laser, optic laser. So you treat the blood intravenously, and so every time the blood passes by, it gets treated. So in an hour's time, you have it treated about 60 times. And then also you do that where you bring an optic cable close to the cancer, and then also do it externally. And so that photosensitizer will then draw the light into the cancer cell, triggering then the creation of reactive oxygen species. So that's kind of one of the therapies that.
Yep, the ROS. Yes. Yeah, you're right. That is one of my favorites. And that the stems, and then exosomes, and peptides and the same sort of targeting and stimulation. Yeah, very
you
good.
can use peptides, exosomes. Yeah, exosomes very good for brain. So absolutely.
Well, I like exosomes too, because they only have an improvement mindset. So they're only stimulating and improving the body. Yeah. So they can't change their mind midstream and decide, I don't like that one, that person, I'm gonna, There's no Frankenstein factor in there.
Exactly. All they do is to turn on what's already there, meaning that they go in and activate normal processes that exist already. So they don't try to do things that's not normal.
Yes. Yeah. I thank you. Like I said, there's so much going on in my brain, and it's like, oh, I've got 10 of them and I don't know where's yeah. But that is one of my favorites, my new favorites, and I'm watching it very closely.
Yeah. No, it's fun. It's fun to play around. That's what we do as integrative therapies, and I really appreciate what you do to have this platform, where people can meet and connect and share ideas, and that way we can become much better in achieving our goal, which is to have a safe, natural therapy that is as effective as possible to address cancer.
Well, thank you. And that's what I really like what you're doing, why I really like what you're doing here. Same thing. The platform is really important, and sitting and discussing it. You asked, and I was like, the B vitamins, I'm really big on right now, and mistletoe and laetrile. And it's a shame that our country's so narrow-minded about any, things that work. I mean, that are herbs and that are grasses and that are, vitamins. I mean, for heaven's sakes, it's okay to do a drug that kills people, but let's not do a vitamin.
No.
It just drives me.
That'd be scary. Yeah, the mistletoe IVs, and then you have the combination like poly-MVA, DCA.
Right, and artsy, artesunate, and C, and B17, which is it's apricot seed, for heaven's sakes. Why is that bad? Yeah. And artemisinin, is an herb. How can we outlaw an herb? It's like, it grows. You can eat it.
It grows, exactly. Well, FDA, I guess they have other thoughts about things.
Well, they want to make it a drug, is what they want to do. Yeah. So it's all about money, and that's a real shame. So Anyway, I
Well,
hope you keep doing this because this is so wonderful, so educational, and I encourage everybody to keep watching. You know, this is just so useful and so helpful.
no, Annie, I'm so grateful for everything that you're doing. I'm grateful that you're willing to share your story, and so that more people that are that get into the spot that you were, that they quicker can find a solution. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Annie.
Thank you. Thank you. And Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah, everything. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye now.